So I was on a consultation call with a potential client the other day, and he brought up this subject when I asked him, how his dating life is going. He said, girls in my country are hard to get. This city, this country, this culture, girls are X, girls are Y, and for that reason, it's really hard to get girls. I've heard this tons of times, and it's almost always wrong in almost every situation that I've heard guys going to that country or in that country. They eventually found success if they listened to me. Or in this case, this guy, he was in a particular city and country that I had a previous client years before who had a lot of success. And so it was funny to see him complaining when I knew, without a doubt, that you can succeed in that country doing day games, so approaching girls, on the street or at the mall. And so I wanted to cover this because I've heard it before. I've heard it from other clients of mine who I pushed to actually go out and approach. Like I had a client, or I currently have a client, he's come back for multiple sessions, and we're doing one right now. He lives in Thailand. And when we first started, he was a little bit hesitant to think that you can do cold approach. So approaching someone you don't know, because he was used to meeting girls through social circle. And I was like, you know what, man, sure, it's a conservative country, whatever, but I don't think it's a big deal. I know Chase has been all over Asia and hasn't had any issues. So I haven't been to Asia, myself, but I've been to, probably half of Europe, or maybe a little over half, and I've never had any issues. So I don't know what you're talking about. And eventually he pushed himself, and then he found success. So he proved that wrong. This is a funny example, but I've used to play World of Warcraft, and I was in a guild with a bunch of guys from Dubai. So, the Emirates, you would think the Middle East is super conservative, and in some cases it is. But because they're part of the, important families in Dubai, as long as they're careful with it not letting it get out, they were, partying and doing drugs and having premarital sex in a country where that's illegal. So there's a lot of cases of guys succeeding where you would think you can't succeed. Sure, if you're in fucking Saudi Arabia in the village, yeah, you're not going to be able to do cold approach, right? But you're probably not in that situation, so I don't think you really have a lot of room to bitch or complain. And I'm going to go through the reasons why you're just complaining, and it's a skill issue, and you just need to get fucking good, okay? So let's hop to it. Girls in my country are hard to get. You are wrong. You're just bad. It's a skill issue. Get good. So one guy is complaining, the other wins. That guy was in a particular European country. Let's just say Portugal. It's a fucking country. You're not going to know who the fuck he is, right? And he was like, oh yeah, the girls here are, approaching someone during the day is weird because, people kind of keep to themselves, whereas in other countries, they're more open and they're more. I'm like, dude, go to Eastern Europe. People there are ice fucking cold when it comes to people outside of their social circle. And rejections are very hot and cold. Whereas a culture like America, which is kind of funny because a lot of guys complain, oh, girls in America are, suck, and, non-westernized countries are, dude, girls in Eastern Europe can just be as slutty and gold diggery and shitty as any girl in America, okay? There are cultural differences, but they don't have too much of a significant effect that, it's really worth making any great distinction, okay? And usually when people talk like that, they either have very, very selective bias on their sample size, and usually it's just not that big of a sample size, or they haven't actually experienced it, right? So Eastern Europe, super cold, but you can do cold approach and succeed just fine there. Whereas in America, girls are more open, if you're American, you could be in a fucking grocery line and you can turn around and say hey to someone, and then, they're telling you their life story within a couple minutes, right? People are very open here in America, especially compared to anywhere else in Europe. But I did cold approach just fine in Eastern Europe, and I did cold approach just fine in America, okay? So one guy can be complaining about his culture, but another guy is just succeeding, as in the case with the previous client who had success in day game. And I know because he literally sent me videos of him approaching girls and the pictures, and I could see the beautiful women he was talking to, and he had success with them in the same fucking city in Portugal that this other guy was in. So I knew, I was like, no, you're just bad, right? And that's fine. It's okay to be bad. It's okay to be new. He was very new to girls, right? But he had this stupid belief that wasn't based on any actual experience, right? The thing is, though, I understand why you can kind of fall for this trick, and it's for this reason right here. you will be more comfortable abroad because you don't have to worry about reputation, right? This is a big one. Guys, when they're in their city or their country, they've grown up there and they've kind of fell into like a quicksand, like a quagmire, where the deeper they sink into habits and not having a lot of friend groups and being social, at some point the mind is going to cope. And the mind is going to come up with excuses as to why you're in this situation, because admitting that you're bad is very difficult to do. It's the mark of wisdom if you're able to do it, but it is very difficult to do because then you realize you have to do work. That's the shitty part. Being wrong, I think, is part of why it hurts, but the fact that you have to do work, that's the part that really stings, because that's going to require a lot of effort. So when you are stuck and you get caught in thinking that you matter, that you're important, if you were run over on the side of the road, I mean, people there would probably care that you just died in front of them, but you would be pretty quickly forgotten outside of, your immediate family and friends. So really want to try and emphasize you're not that fucking important. And I'm sure you've heard that on videos, but if you're not taking action, you're not understanding the depth of that statement. You're really not that important. People don't give a shit as much as you think by orders of magnitude. Yes, you do have a reputation, and reputation can matter, but unless you are some socialite who knows a lot of people in the city, I really wouldn't be worrying about it. And even in that case, being kind of a pussy. There's a lot of people who are like slammed on the front page news of like media outlets and still go out and live their life. Okay. So if they can do it, you can probably pull it off. But I understand why when you go abroad, you don't have that excuse. Even though it's a stupid excuse, you don't have it. So you can kind of just do what you want, right? Because you're not going to be there very long. Of course, there's also the sense of adventure, which is, everyone falls in love with that romantic ideal. It's an adventure. I'm somewhere new. It's exciting. It's a different language. People look different skin colors, different, looks, different, whatever. And you're probably going to paint it with rose-colored glasses. But guess what? Someone in that country, who is a guy who might be watching my videos, for you it's a fucking adventure. For him, it's Tuesday. Like, oh, I want to go to Rome. I mean, for a lot of people, it's just a fucking place, right? I remember living in Barcelona, and they're still working on that fucking Cathedral de las Familias. And I remember seeing it in the distance. I remember seeing pictures of it online. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to see it. And then I was in Barcelona, and I looked, and I could kind of see it in the distance. And I'm like, do I really feel like walking over there to go see it? It's not even fucking done. Or I think it wasn't done. I don't know. And I was just like, yeah, it's pretty. I'd rather, lick pussy. I mean, it's just like cool. And then for the people living there, I'm sure some people appreciate it, but for a lot of people living there, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's just I was living on Las Ramblas, like the main fucking road in Barcelona. It's like the most busy road in the world. And it was cool, but at the same time, for a lot of people, it's just a road with a lot of people on it. All right, so no matter where you go, you're going to find someone who for them it's just a Tuesday, but for you it's an adventure. You can use that to your advantage, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't allow yourself to have a sense of adventure, but because you cling to that contrast of like my boring ass home, cool adventure, you're more likely to suck when you're home. So unless you have the money and the free time to go on permanent adventures, which some people do, you're probably going to struggle, right? You should see everything as an adventure. Walking outside the house that you've been living in for 10 years and going to the city, you can meet someone you've never met who's part of a social circle that you've never met because you are not an A-list celebrity who everyone knows. And even then, you're not plugged into every fucking social circle. There's someone out there you haven't met. That's an adventure. For me, it wasn't the country. It wasn't the language. It wasn't the food. And no, I don't give a shit. It was the girls. It was the pussy. It was the ass and the tits. That's what's in a fucking adventure for me. As long as I can afford to live there and the cheaper the better and the girls are hot, that's why I lived in Europe. Because of that, right? So my adventure was pussy. It's the best adventure. But this is why you feel this way, right? So you feel this way, which makes you feel this way. If you kind of got to get rid of this, and then you'll get rid of this. But there is one advantage to being a foreigner. So I will give you this, right? And I'm hesitant to say it, but I have to be honest, right? Because, you know, when I was in Romania, you know, my Romanian friends were like, oh yeah, you get a lot of girls because, you know, it helps that you're American and da-da-da. And I'm like, it helps a little bit, right? It makes me novel, but I still got rejected, right? So if I'm still getting rejected, despite having whatever X advantage you think, I'm a foreigner, if someone's tall, good looking, big dick, whatever it is that you excuse for why you suck with girls, if someone has that and gets rejected, that isn't a foolproof plan. It just edges things in their favor, right? But this is one thing that does edge things in your favor, and I call it the invader bonus. You can just call it fucking being exotic and, you know, different. I kind of like the idea of an invader bonus, right? You are new there, and you being foreign, whatever, different skin color, just a different, you can literally just be French versus fucking someone else who looks pretty much fucking French. I mean, they kind of all look the same, right? All white people look the same. A lot of Asian people look the same, right? It's you can tell some differences, but I mean, not that much, right? So you being a little bit different, though, once they hear your accent, or you speak a different language, or you just dress differently, and you carry yourself differently, it's interesting. It's just fucking different, right? And everyone every once in a while likes a different spice. If you eat fucking tacos every day, they can be the most amazing tacos in the world, but you're eventually going to get tired of tacos, and you're going to want pasta, right? And vice versa. So being a foreigner does help, which might make guys go, oh yeah, well that's why I suck in my country, because I'm not a foreigner. Well, there's tons of people in your country who have success. So again, it's not quite the thing, but it does give you an advantage under one circumstance. If you pass the fundies check, fundamentals, right? Your body language, the way you carry yourself, how you use your hands to communicate, your facial expressions. Do you communicate with your face? Do you communicate with your eye contact, right? Do you know how to hold eye contact to create tension, or break it to break tension when necessary? You know, make cool facial expressions. Or do you have a cool voice? Or do you have a voice that's always monotone and you always talk the same? Or do you know how to intonate and you know how to, you know, change your voice? And sometimes you're really fast paced. Sometimes you kind of get slower and a little bit more pondering, right? Hand gestures, body language, vocal tonality. If you pass that basic game check and you're not a weird dude, then you get the invader bonus. It's a conditional triggered ability, right? But if you're a weird fuck and you go to a foreign country, you're just going to be a foreign weird fuck. It might even make you less attractive, right? So the invader bonus has a potential negative if you don't pass this initial trigger test, right? If you don't have that threshold of fundamentals based on what she needs, right? If she's a fucking 4, she's going to have a lower threshold for what she finds attractive. But let's say, a decently hot girl, she's going to have a decently high bar. Once you meet it, then you get the invader bonus. But if you're lower than it, and you're just fucking weird and awkward, and you're not charismatic, not sexy, not funny, whatever it is that, could put things in your advantage, then now you're a foreigner and weird. Well, if you've ever traveled abroad, you know guys who fit that, right? Talking to girls in Ukraine or in Romania, like, oh yeah, those creepy Turkish guys, or, the creepy gypsies, or, when I went to Sweden for the first time a long time ago, girls were complaining about all the immigration of Middle Eastern guys, right? But then when I went back years later, I remember going to this club and all the cool promoters, who all these girls were just all over them, right? So I just talked to them, met them, became friends with them, partying, and then I'd see these girls all over them. A lot of them were Middle Eastern. But these guys had the fundamentals and the charm and this and that. And then, of course, over time, girls in that culture acclimated to guys from those cultures, and it became the cool thing, right? So, when probably some celebrity ended up dating some Middle Eastern guy, and then, oh, now it's the cool thing to do. It's in fashion, it's in vogue, whatever, right? So the invader bonus is real, but you have to actually be decent, unless, again, you're going after force, which we'll go into later. So here's the thing. Are you even fucking approaching? If you're not even approaching girls, you have no right to say this, right? What is your monthly approach, right? What I tell guys is, if you want to see any level of success, you have to be doing 10 approaches minimum a week. If you really want to see results, you can do lower and see results, but especially if you're newer, you need to do 10 minimum. I recommend 20. It's kind of like computer specs for like a new game coming out, right? You have the minimum recommendation, like do you even want to be able to turn it all on? Well, you need this graphics card and this CPU, right? But really what you're looking for is the recommended settings so you can actually play it, you know, actually make it look fucking pretty, right? I recommend 20 plus approaches a week, meaning one approach, excuse me, hey, I saw you over here, I think you're really pretty, want to come say hi, etc. Right? Now, how do you do that? I have a whole course on how to meet girls everywhere. The course is literally called that because it's about meeting girls everywhere. It's about day game. It's in the description below. You go to my website, HectorCastilloDating.com, and you go to Meet Girls Everywhere, and you purchase it. You even get my Locations DLC. It's an add-on package. It goes over like gym game, beach game, like mall game, and public transportation game if you're in Europe. That's helpful. It's now within the main course, so you get even more content for it. So you get that. It's $297. And it'll teach you how to approach girls and actually start racking up some fucking girls in your funnel. Okay, highly recommended. If you're not approaching girls during the day, you need to be doing it in night game. Online dating's I would highly suggest you do cold approach. There's nothing that will ever beat it. I don't care how fucking good you are. So you can't be complaining about this unless you're actually approaching. Okay? Now, guy comes to me and says, theoretically, fuck you. You're wrong. I went abroad and I, got a wife or got a girl. Okay, cool. Congrats, man. I'm happy for you. Right? Usually, if you suck at home, you're going to fail abroad, except for two situations. She needs a fucking passport, okay? Which is a lot of cases what's happening, right? Oh, yeah, she loves me. Yeah, sure, buddy. I mean, maybe you have something charming about you. I mean, you had to have probably something charming about you. But overall, you kind of suck. But she wanted a passport. And she was willing to trade love and lust and all that shit for security, which some girls are willing to do. Usually, though, once they do get that and then settle into that country, they will start to... The more deeper desires are going to blossom because people fight for survival, but the only reason truly they want to survive is to enjoy themselves. That's the main drive for why you have survival. But so yeah, she's either going for a passport or you're going after fucking fours. Okay, everyone has their own taste, and I'm not here to insult anyone. One guy can say my 10 is this, and another guy says it's a 7. Right? I've seen guys show me their fucking 10s, and I'm like, she's all right, and I've shown guys my 10s, and sometimes they're like, oh yeah, she's fucking smoking hot. Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, she's pretty, but not my type. And some guys are like, doesn't really do anything for me. But at a certain point, we can all agree what's just really not attractive. Maybe, or maybe it's entirely subjective. But probably you're maybe not going after the highest quality. You're just getting something. Or she needs a passport, right? Or you are actually decent, right? Maybe you just needed, an adventure moment to kind of unlock your hunger and your urges. That's possible. It happens, right? But for the most part, in like 95% of circumstances, whatever, shit. 1 second. You are probably just bad, and it's a skill issue, and you need to get good. Okay? So stop fucking complaining. I've seen the examples that you may have thwarted at every turn for the most part, and I've given all the reasons why you're wrong, with some minor exceptions that really are probably not going to apply to you, and even if they do, okay, cool, you win, but at what cost? You're just fucking complaining. Enjoy being single. Like, I mean, you should never really look for a reason to not take action, even if you're somewhat right. Like, I guess if you're in bumfuck nowhere, but that's not because girls are difficult, it's because of the context. Like, it's not the country, it's because you're in a small town where reputation matters. And you can't really break, once you get stuck in a social circle in a very tight-knit area, it's very hard to break out, right? Usually when you're dealing with social circle, you have to leave the social circle level up, and then come back to it, and people are like, oh, who's this new version of Hector, right? Or new version of whatever your fucking name is. But when you go into that new social circle and you train yourself to be more charismatic, more funny, more sexy, whatever, learn how girls work, how to have conversations, how to listen, you're going to be elevated in social status because people don't have the prior conceptions of you, right? So whatever situation you're in, is it really because of your country? Or is it because you're just stuck in a quagmire and you just need to find a new social circle or just go out and try things? Or maybe you're just bad and you need to get good. In either case, I mean, you should just keep watching my videos. Go out and approach girls, okay? Get my course, Meet Girls Everywhere. Get my texting book. It's called What She Really Means. It's on Amazon. You can get it in the description below. And start practicing, right? If you start approaching girls and you approach them the right way, how I teach you, and you text them the right way, most guys suck dick at texting, you're eventually going to get dates. Once you get enough dates, that's another skill set too, but eventually you'll probably get something, okay? And then once you start seeing the success, this excuse will go away. This video won't fully convince you. The only thing that really convinces people at the end of the day is results. So you have to get results. Until then, it's all just theoretical bullshit. So go out and start approaching. Cool. Hector Castillo. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.